Hello everyone, Max with A1 Website Pro here, your friendly neighborhood web developer. And today we're going to be talking about creating a contact form with AJAX, jQuery, Bootstrap, PHP, and MySql. So this is the form that we're going to be making, but it's what the form does that makes all the magic happen. So if we come on here and we just click contact, we'll see this little thing here. Please fill out all fields. Notice the nice clean Bootstrap. And let's say that we fill out this field here. We fill out this field and this field. And we don't fill out this field and we hit contact. It says please answer the spam question. It says type the number 7 here. So let's go ahead and fill this out. We'll say jack at a1sold.com. We'll say, oh, can we say this is a test? And then someone is contacting you from your website. Okay? And then when we hit contact, you notice it says, thank you for contacting us. Someone will get back to you shortly. Now, there's a couple things that happen here. We're inserting into the database. As you can see, if we look right here in contact, we can see that it's inserting to the database. The other thing that it's doing, it's actually emailing us a message. Okay, and in that message we can style it out like I did with the table here, and you get fancier than that. So that's what we're going to be learning about. So without further ado, let's just dive right into the HTML. And let me go ahead and pull this down so I have the entire editor in the screen for you, so you can see what's going on. All right, so this is the bare bones HTML document. And notice we have doc type of HTML, and this HTML lang equals en. That's en for English. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is slap in a title tag. And the title of this is going to be Contact Form with AJAX, jQuery, Bootstrap, PHP, and MySql. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to set the character set to UTF-8. This is for languages. Okay. Let's go ahead and set a viewport. This is good for whenever you're using Bootstrap. You know, you set the viewport to the width, device width, and initial scale of 1. So it makes everything a little bit bigger on smaller devices. The next thing we're going to have to do is bring in the Bootstrap CSS file. And we'll bring in the minified CSS with this link relationship as a style sheet. And the source reference link is this right here. Okay, so that's going to bring in our Bootstrap library. The next library that we're going to need to bring in is the AJAX library from Google. So let's go ahead and paste that in there. And notice it's a script source, and we're going to use Google's AJAX library, the minified one. Finally, we need one more script, and that is going to be for the Bootstrap script. Okay, so we're going to throw that in there, and then that way we could take advantage of Bootstrap's beautiful styling. Okay, we're going to start out, because we're using Bootstrap, with a div class of container. Okay, so let me just paste this in here, and that's how it all starts. All right. Now inside this container, we're going to start entering our form elements. Now I'm going to paste these in one at a time so I could go over it with you on how Bootstrap reads the form. So if we go div class form group, okay, now this is going to be our form group. Between this div and this div, this is our form group. And we have a label for email, and then actually give it the label of email. The input ID is email, and this is what our AJAX is going to be operating off of. But notice this class of form control. That gives Bootstrap, that's what Bootstrap looks for to control this form. The type is going to be set to email, and the placeholder is going to be your email. So if we save that and load that in the DOM here, you can see that we have this nice Bootstrap, form starting. So let's go ahead and grab the next several lines so we can speed the process up here, and then I'll explain them. We're going to go inside the container div and paste these in here. Okay, so the next form group is going to be subject. This is the label for subject. This input ID is subject, so AJAX can grab the value from it. Same thing, class form control. The type, however, is going to be text this time instead of email, and the placeholder is going to be subject. We can put a capital S on there. The next form group div class is going to be a text area. So instead of subject, we should say your message. Okay, so label for comments. Okay, so let's put that here. So label for comments, and that's going to be your message. The text ID is called comments. The class is form control once again, and the placeholder we're going to have just enter text here. And then finally we're going to close out the text area. All right. The last but not least is the spam control question. So we have a form group and we have a label for spam, and then we ask them, spam control, what's 5 plus 2, right? And then in the input ID, we use this so our script can grab it. We have another class of form control. Now the type is TEL. Well, why do we use TEL? Whenever they're on a mobile device, it brings up their number dialer as if they were dialing a phone number, okay? And it's a lot easier than whenever they type in here whenever they're getting ready to enter some text, because that'll bring up their letter keyboard. This brings up their number dialer. And then the placeholder is type 7 here. Okay, but that only works on mobile devices. If you're on a computer, it's just going to have a space there. All right, so let's stay within inside our div class of container and create a button so that whenever the button is hit, the script process begins. So we have a button tag, and the type is submit, and the ID is submit. Okay, and the class is button space, and then we have another class of button default. Okay, because we can put more than one class in a class tag. IDs, you can only put one ID. In a class, you can put as many classes as you want. Okay, as you can see in this example. Finally, we name that button contact. We close out the button tag, and now we're ready to start diving in to the script. So first, we have to give the div a div ID to the script to start displaying information in. And that's what this little div ID does right here. So whatever information that the script gets for us is going to be displayed within this div. So let's go ahead and save this and look at our browser once again. And I'll refresh the browser, and you can see that our form is taking shape. However, nothing is happening here just yet, so what we got to do is continue to code. And that's why we're all here, right? So let's go. Let me start grabbing the script. And I'm going to bring this over one by one because it's a little bit lengthy, okay? So let's go ahead and first of all put in our script tag and close that script tag right here. And then we're going to go inside the script tag, go down a couple lines, and discuss what's going on here. Now we're using jQuery, so this is a shorthand of writing script. So we're looking for the document ready function. After the document ready function is called, the DOM is loaded, the document object model. Then we target the ID of submit and see if somebody clicked that button. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get some values and store them in variables. So let me go ahead and toss this in here. So here we're looking for whatever value was entered in the email div ID at the top here, okay? And we're going to store that in a variable called EM. The same thing with subject. We're going to look for what was ever stored in the ID of subject and turn that into a variable called sub, okay? Comments, we're going to take whatever was entered into our comments ID and store it in a variable called com, okay? We're going to take that value and store it in com. Same with spam. We're going to go up to the spam ID. Whatever value was placed in here, we're going to grab that value and store it in a variable called SPM, short for spam. Now we're going to create our data string. Okay, another variable called data string. And what's going on here is we're taking EM and we're storing it in a variable called EM1, a post variable. Okay, we're taking sub and storing it into a post variable of sub1. We're taking com and we're storing it into a post variable of com1. Now notice we didn't do SPM. Okay, we got the value of SPM here, but we're going to do something different with that. We're going to check it client side, right on the page. Okay, we're not going to submit it to any PHP. But let me, we need to check and make sure that the other fields have been entered. So we're going to start out with an if statement here. Okay, let's start out with an if statement. If EM is equal to empty, or if sub is equal to empty, or if com is equal to empty, then we want to do something. Okay, and that's what we're going to do right here. Copy. If any of these are empty, we're going to target that display div, and we're going to grab a Bootstrap class alert warning, and it's going to echo out, please fill in these fields. Okay, and that's going to give us that nice little box there. The next thing that we're going to do, we're going to use an else if statement in JavaScript or AJAX, and if SPM, notice that's where the var SPM, if it's not equal or not set to 7, then we have to do something, because that's the only number it can be. 5 plus 2 is no other number, correct? At least I think so. All right, so let's go ahead, else if SPM is not equal to 7, then we're going to target that div of display, and now we're going to give an alert of danger, a Bootstrap alert of danger. Okay, notice that class, alert, and then alert danger. And then it's going to say, please answer the spam question. And we're going to close that div right there. Okay. Now we use else if. That means we got more to go, right? So we have an else statement. Finally, if the two above conditions are met, then we are going to post it to our processor like so. So else, if everything checks out here and here, okay, and we're going to do else, we're going to call AJAX, and the type is going to be post, and we're going to post it to our URL called processor.php, and we're going to grab our data string right here. We're going to send it to that processor.php. We're going to set cache to false, so it doesn't cache any results. On success, we're going to call this function of result. We're going to target the div ID of display and grab whatever HTML is coming back from the processor.php and put it in that div, the display div right here. Okay. Finally, we're going to close out all of our curly brackets, our parentheses, and then we're going to return false so it doesn't keep repeating. Okay, and then finally close out everything within that function. Okay, then we can end the script like that. Okay, so right now we have not built our processor.php. It's still blank, right? There is no processor.php. So if we go here though and reload the page, we hit contact, we can see it says please fill all in all fields. It's not subject on going to the processor page. And if we fill all these fields out, test, and we hit contact again, it says please answer the spam question. And so if we answer the spam question wrong, like 2, you notice it still says please answer the spam question. Okay, now let's build our processor.php, and then we'll come back here and put the correct number in there. Okay. So let's start with this processor. The first thing we have to do is include our config file in our processor. Okay, and that's this file here. It's our connection to our database. All right, so include once config.php. The next thing we want to do is we want to sanitize all of these strings. So let's go ahead and make a comment. Sanitize all post variables, post vars. Okay, we want to sanitize everything. Let me see. S-A-N-I-T-I-Z-E, I think. Okay, so here we're grabbing the post variable of the EM1, which is right here. Okay, and then sub1 and com1, and we have them in the processor, EM1, sub1, and com1. Now what all this other stuff is sanitization. Okay, so you sanitize those strings and you take special characters and harmful stuff out of that post variable. The next thing that you do is you'll insert it into your database. Okay, so let's copy and paste this code right in here. Now we want to insert it into a database. We start out with our MySQL query con for our connection. That's in our config file. We want to insert into contact, email, subject, comments, and that's in our database right here. Email, subject, comments, So if you don't have this, I'll have this within the scripted A1 Website Pro too, so you can just copy and put that database right in there for yourselves. And then we're taking the variables of email clean, putting it in there, sub clean, or whatever the subject was, we're going to clean it out, and com clean, and insert that into our database. Now the next thing that we need to do is email ourselves the form. Okay, and let's go ahead and go over this little section right here. So I'm sending it to my email address, maximusmccullough29@gmail.com, and now I start headers, MIME version 1.0. Okay, and here what we're going to do is concatenate headers. This little period with the equal sign, that means we're just adding on to this whatever this is. Okay, the same thing with this. We're setting our content type to text.html. If you don't do this, then everything's going to come over in plain text, and you're not going to get that table that we saw in here. See the table with all the rows and columns? So that's why you have to have that set like that. The next thing we're going to do is put a from address, max@a1websitepro.com, and then another header, CC. We're going to CC max@a1sold in there. Okay. Now here's where we start our message that we're going to send. Okay, we're going to start with a table and give it a width of 100%, a border of 1, cell spacing of 1, cell padding of 2. Okay, and as you look at that, that's what this has right here. Okay, and then we're going to make another table row and a table column with a column span of 2. Someone contacted you on your website, and you can see that right here. Notice that there's no line in between here. Here we have lines, lines, and then no lines again. So we could have centered this text through a style. We could have centered the graphic, but we didn't. The next thing is the subject line. Okay, we have 2 columns there. One says subject, and one is whatever the sub clean is from that post variable. The next thing is the message, the comment, the clean comment. We're going to put that in there. And then this is where we put the image in that particular thing. And I noticed that I forgot a closing tag right there just now. And isn't that something? Okay. So anyway, you got to have the closing tag in there as well. The image tag source is coming from A1 Website Pro. The width is 300 pixels. Then you close that tag out. Close the column and close that table row. And finally, close the table out altogether. Now this is what makes the mail function happen. Let me move this up a little bit on there. So mail, this is for the PHP function of mail, 2, and we grab that variable from right here, and then sub clean, okay, whatever the subject, clean subject is, and then we grab the message, see the message here, and we have sub clean and the comments within the message variable. So that's why we don't have to send it here again. And then finally we put headers in there. Okay. Now let's go ahead and send this back to AJAX and then close our connection to our database and close our PHP tag. Hit copy, paste, and there you go. And that right here, we're echoing an alert of success. This is a green box. Thank you for contacting us. Someone will get back to you within 1 business day. And finally, you close the connection to your database. Okay? And that's it. And that's how you create a form with AJAX, PHP, MySql, jQuery, and Bootstrap. This is Max with A1 Website Pro. I hope this tutorial was beneficial to you. Bye.